Zac Hartley, he's a jack of all trades, a successful finfluencer, entrepreneur, day trader, and investor. But are his investment choices as impressive as his resume? Well, we're going to put him to the test. He's got just 6 minutes to justify the top investments in his portfolio, and I'm going to do my best to poke holes in his thinking. You think you're up to the task, Zac?
Let's do it.
Let's get at it. This is Inside My Portfolio. Hello everyone, welcome to Inside My Portfolio, where we challenge financial influencers to defend their top investments in a race against the clock. And along the way, help you learn how to make smarter investing decisions of your own. I'm your host, Rob Moise, and joining us is DIY investor Zac Hartley, founder of Hartley Trading. Zac, all the way from Calgary, coming to us in Toronto, welcome, and great to have you here in studio with us.
Thank you for having me, I appreciate it.
So we're going to dive into your portfolio in just a moment here, but give us a sense of who you are as an investor and a trader, your goals, your style, time frame, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so the goal is retire early and live off my investments. Time frame, I have it split between kind of a long-term portfolio where it's just consistent and steady ETF investing, and then the other side of the portfolio is a lot more active day trading, swing trading, and me trying to basically get in the weeds and try and figure out how to beat the market. And so it's kind of split between those two things with regards to timeline. And then I invest in a couple different asset classes. So that's what the portfolio looks like. And I create content and invest and trade full time.
Yeah, it's really interesting to get your perspective as someone who does kind of like all sides of the investing and trading angle here. So tell us, what does your portfolio overall look like in terms of allocation?
Yeah, so right now I have a retirement portfolio that's just pure ETFs. I have the short-term margin and swing trading accounts, and then I also do a little bit of real estate. I do some private equity, and I have some crypto in my portfolio. So 5 different assets, and it's pretty evenly split between those different asset classes, but it does vary from time to time depending on where I see the opportunities.
Okay, so lots of diversification. I'm interested to dive inside your portfolio, see what you got here. We're going to give you your 3 investments, 2 minutes apiece, 1 unforgiving countdown timer, and of course, no holds barred. Before we get rolling though, a quick disclaimer to our viewers. We're going to be asking Zac about some of the investments that make sense for him, but they may not make sense for others. So take our discussion as food for thought in your own investing process rather than explicit financial advice. With that said, let's start the clock. And we're going to start with your first investment. This one is Bitcoin. Tell us why you hold this one.
Yeah, Bitcoin is one of those assets that's very unique. It's also very divisive. But if you look at Bitcoin since inception, or even just over the last 10 to 15 years, it has outperformed nearly every asset class or every asset that's available on the market. So I'm a big fan of it long term. I've also kind of dug into Bitcoin over the last few years and tried to learn as much as I can. And if you look at the charts, what you'll notice is that the price tends to move in a 4-year cycle. I think I'm starting to understand that 4-year cycle a little bit. And so I'm getting in and out of Bitcoin a little more actively as well.
What makes you think that this thing is going to have staying power? Because it feels like it's been like a solution in search of a purpose for the last like 20 years in some respects. What gives it that long-term value?
I think the purpose has changed over time, especially in the early days when things were testing. It was used for a lot of different reasons, but now the use cases are expanding. And so I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think you could take it offline right now with how the system is built. I love that everything is on the blockchain, everything is visible, you can see all of the transactions. And long term, I think Bitcoin has some massive advantages from just the way that it's built and the way that it's controlled, as well as the technology on the blockchain behind it that make it unique and give it massive advantages compared to traditional finance.
What actually makes Bitcoin any different than something like an NFT, which had its like 15 minutes of fame and then just kind of disappeared?
Yeah, the NFTs are kind of unique. The biggest difference is that anybody can create an NFT. When you look at Bitcoin, the supply is fixed. There's only ever going to be about 21 million Bitcoins. So far, we've mined roughly 20 million. And so you're only ever going to see a couple percentage of inflation in the actual Bitcoin supply. That doesn't exist anywhere else. With Canadian dollars, for instance, or companies that issue stocks, or guys sitting in their room making NFTs, you can issue as much as you want. That is not the case with Bitcoin. It is a fixed supply, and there's only 21 million. So if you don't get it before we stop mining Bitcoin, the price is only going higher.
All right, and you beat the clock on that one, so well done to you. Let's get to your second investment. This one is Apple. Why do you hold this one?
Apple is one of the best companies in the market. If you look at the history of the company and the returns of the company, they speak for themselves. But on top of that, they have one of the healthiest and largest balance sheets in the entire market, anywhere you look in the world. They have amazing margins, especially for a hardware company and a product company. I think they have amazing management, and some of the products that they've just launched recently, I think are doing amazingly well. The laptop that they launched, the Neo MacBook, I think a lot of their products are going to do extremely well. Their AI strategy is a little bit hidden right now, but I think long-term Apple is going to continue to be one of the best performing companies in the market.
Well, let's talk about AI for a second because, yeah, their strategy seems a little bit more subdued than others in their market, their key competitors. What makes you think they're going to be a winner in the AI era?
Well, I think that's actually done on purpose. When you look at Apple, they're usually not the first mover in a market. You look at Meta, they launched 3 different headsets before Apple launched the Vision Pro. Apple is never going to be the first mover in the market. What they like to do is they like to sit back, they like to examine the market, see how consumers are reacting to the first products, and then Apple comes out and they launch a very Apple-like product that usually tends to dominate the market. And I think that's probably the right strategy, especially with the spending that we're seeing in the AI space right now. Apple's maintained their cash, they've maintained their balance sheet. Google's having to raise money right now. And so I think Apple's actually in a very strong position to see how things play out and then approach the market strategically.
Now, they do have a big management change up at top here. Tim Cook stepping down. What makes you confident that the new management's going to be able to take the reins?
Well, I think a lot of people were asking that exact question when Steve Jobs passed away. And if we look at the numbers, Tim Cook has actually done an absolutely amazing job. I think the stock price has more than 10x'd, and I think that's because of the culture that they've built at Apple. I also think when you work at Apple that long, like the new CEO has, I think he has over 20 years, I don't think things are going to change too much between Tim Cook and the new CEO coming in. I think he's going to do just as well or better than Tim Cook because of the infrastructure that Apple has built around him.
All right, and here you go. 2 for 2, beating the clock once again.
Nice.
Let's get to your third investment, and that one is BMO's All Equity ETF, colloquially known as ZEQT. Its ticker symbol. Why do you hold this one?
Yeah, I love this ETF. It is a broad market, globally diversified all equity ETF, which means I'm holding equities from around the world. It has extremely low fees, it has great liquidity, and this is the ETF that I'm using for retirement. Every month, I buy more and more of this ETF. I know that I'm going to get the market returns. I know that it's going to be steady. And I know that over the long term going into my retirement, this is going to be the rock of my portfolio that's going to carry me to retirement. Everywhere else, I'm trying to beat the market, but this is going to hold me down and make sure that I hit my goals long term.
But why hold a product like this rather than sort of like breaking it out into like individual ETFs focused on different markets, and then you buy the ones that you think are undervalued rather than just like going all in on the one product?
Yeah, so this is my long-term portfolio. I want to just put money into it and I don't want to have to think about it. I want to have confidence in what I'm owning, and I do a ZEQT, and I want to know that when I get my paycheck and I put $1,000 in every month, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to analyze financials. I don't have to worry about what a politician is doing in another country. I'm globally diversified. I pay very low fees. And this is a portfolio, or a ETF, that contains equities from around the world. And so I have global exposure. And I think it's just the perfect situation for somebody trying to build a retirement portfolio that doesn't want to be looking at stock tickers and financials every day.
There's a lot of other EQT style products out there. Why did you pick this one over the others?
Yeah, there's a lot of great products out there. Many of them are very similar, but I really like this one because the fees in general are lower than any of the other alternatives. They actually just lowered their fees recently, and it's owned Canadian.
Do you have any concern at all with the fact that this thing is really exposed to U.S. equities and by extension a lot of the big U.S. tech companies, that there's some concern about overvaluation and AI bubbles and stuff like that? Does that concern you at all?
It concerns me a little bit, but I believe the weighting is around 40 or 45% in the ETF. And honestly, when you look at the global market, that probably makes sense for the size of the U.S. market compared to everywhere else. So it is heavily weighted in the U.S. I'm totally okay with that. The U.S. has outperformed most markets over the last 20 or 30 years, so it's fine by me.
All right, we let you cheat on that last one a little bit, but hey, 2 for 3, under 2 minutes, that's pretty good stuff. Thanks for taking us inside your portfolio. How did you feel under the pressure of the clock?
That was good. That was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know. You seemed really cool as a cucumber under there. You got so much cool stuff in your portfolio with a lot of interesting rationale, so we'd have to have you back and tell us all about these other ones too, but appreciate you taking the time this time around.
I'd love to come back.
Absolutely. And of course, if you want to get started with a portfolio like Zac's, consider TD Easy Trade as your platform. We have 100 free, commission-free stock and ETF trades. We've got partial shares to help you put every dollar to work ASAP. And of course, your choice of TFSA, RRSP, FHSA, and cash accounts. You can scan the QR code on screen for full details. That's it for this edition of Inside My Portfolio. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all next time.
Have more questions? Check out the links to the right and in the description below.